Welcome everyone to the AI Demo Day web event. We'll do a quick intro and a fun fact about everybody. I'll start to set the tone. I am Scott Logan. No one really cares where anyone lives. That's why we're doing a fun fact. I don't care where you live. Sorry, I'm sure it's beautiful. But I am a state bowling champion, the dubious honor of being good at something that is fairly lame but fun. Let's move over to Michael.
Hey, my name is Michael Hartzog, and I run our global alliances here. The fact that you just took my location of where I live away, I'm going to break that because I live in Bozeman, Montana, and everybody knows Montana from Yellowstone. I actually grew up here. Fun fact, I've been skiing since I was 3 years old. Yeah, just love the outdoors.
Amazing.
Taken away where we live. That's a tough one, Scott. Tiffany O'Malley. I live in Texas now, but here's a fun fact. I used to live in Bozeman, Montana with Michael, and I was not tough enough to make it through the winter. So we left and we came to Texas.
Awesome. Adrian.
Hey everyone, Adrian Valenzuela. Since we're not talking about where we live, I will say that one of my favorite movies is Titanic. It probably is not somebody's favorite, but it is mine because it includes everything that you need from drama, excitement, love story, underdog. So I love it all.
Did you cry?
I do get emotional when I'm watching it, so yes.
I am in the same boat. I can't not cry, even though I know what's going to happen. Boat sinks.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dan.
So Dan McCann, CEO, founder of SimTrain. And fun fact, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I own 9 surfboards, and the closest water for surfing is about 6 hours away. Interesting though, when I was young, I decided to teach myself how to walk on water as a surfer. So I actually can walk on water too. I know it's rare, but I can do it anytime the water's frozen, I can do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Welcome to the Contact Center AI Demo Day. So let's go ahead and get started. How does AI affect your human agents? It's not just about an AI agent. It's not just about AI that helps prompt things based on what's happening live. There's so much more to it, though having a really quality AI agent, having really quality information at your fingertips, but using it across the data, using it across your communication styles, all those things are super important. Let's kick things off here with Adrian. What is one of the main things that you see AI helping the actual agent?
Yeah, so if you think about it from an agent standpoint, right, they already have a difficult job as it is. They're working out of several different systems. They're getting trained, if they're multi-skilled, getting trained on different programs, lines of businesses. But I think the way AI is helping them through their day to day is really automating some of those manual tasks for them. So whether that is gathering the data for them, providing them reports on how they did and how they performed the previous day, really showing them exactly how can they improve on their behavior. So if you think about it, it's really about how can we take this complex job that they have around navigating multiple systems, having to make sure that they're aligned with how many skills that they're assigned to. How can we reduce some of those manual tasks so that they can focus on the customer experience, so they can deliver the expectations that their customers are expecting whenever they're engaging with them? So I think it's really about providing tailored performance insights to them that are easily understood and allowing them to do their job.
How about on the agent's performance, live performance? Tiffany, can you speak about that?
Yeah, there's so many AI tools available right now for enterprises to bring into their tech stack. And a lot of those are removing humans, especially for those tier one use cases. That makes a ton of sense. But sometimes people still do want to talk to a human. And what we're seeing in the US is a lot of that being offshored to different parts of the world because frankly, it's more affordable. So when you're interacting with someone who lives in a different country, sometimes you run into a communication barrier. And that's really the reason Sonus exists, is to remove that. Our goal is really just to create a more understanding world. And when it comes to performance, and you're going to see this later on, you'll see it live, but agents being able to just speak how they normally speak and not have to worry about pronouncing words right or wrong allows them to have more confidence. But if you can imagine just being able to communicate clearly with someone, removing all that time, hey, can you repeat that? Give me someone who speaks in the US, send me to your manager. There's all type of metrics that are touched by clear communication, and that's really what we offer. We want to keep people in their jobs. We actually want to add people to the GDP through our software, and the benefits are really remarkable.
And that can really increase the confidence level of the agents themselves, able to perform better, able to communicate in a way that also adds confidence to the customer that their challenge is going to be addressed properly, putting the right foot forward the first time. So, to that point of increasing their confidence, Dan, can you dive into an item or two in relation to that?
Yeah, real quick, think about it. If Sonus is going to open up GDP, which means new markets, which means new talent, you got to train those people, right? And you got to help them build confidence so they can actually perform the job equal to or better than US counterparts or global counterparts. And having an application like SimTrain with that repetition and practice for those agents, there's no better way to prepare them for the job by giving them feedback as to how well they're doing so they know they can do well. And then what's really neat, I know Michael hasn't spoke yet, right? But if you're measuring what those agents are doing in a live production environment, or as Adrian was talking about, identifying areas that you need to coach them up and focus, we're able to take those same outcomes and call recordings and that data and convert them into coaching exercises, target into individual moments. So those agents have the knowledge and wherewithal that I can do any situation, any scenario, and I'm going to nail it. And having that level of confidence actually enables those folks to stay longer and feel better connected and deliver a higher level of performance. So that's where we fit in.
Yeah, put it into layman's terms, say in a sports comparison, if you've never played baseball before and you step up to the bat and there's like a real live pitcher up there that knows what they're doing, like a customer who's got a question, you want to have had some time in the batting cage to simulate what's going on. You want to be able to have a really awesome bat that's high end and gives you confidence there, like the accent translation. And then you want to be able to have a coach on the sidelines that is able to say, hey, do this, do that, specifically move this here, say this if you related to the contact center side, what Adrian was talking about. Michael, you come from Quick, who is an AI agent, maybe a unique perspective on how that can also help the rep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is what's so exciting about this conversation is you have this scenario where as a brand, you've got all this data and you want to up level and bring on agents that are capable of being able to deliver value to your customers, and you want to be able to train them properly. But the last thing that you want to do is have those agents bogged down in negative value, redundant conversations. And so our worldview is, along with everybody else here who's spoken, is that AI is as dumb as it will ever be today. It's only going to get better. And it's really here to empower humans as we go about what it is that we're trying to accomplish today, whether that's a customer or an agent within a brand. And by delivering agentic AI agent that's designed to augment a human, both in helping them self-serve, but also as an agent being able to deliver just-in-time information to that customer should an agent be necessary, is what AI is going to be built for. What you're really doing is you're getting rid of the tier one negative value redundant conversations so that your human agents can be moved up the value chain, make them more valuable, train them properly, give them the tools that the other three panelists are discussing to be the most efficient and effective that they can possibly be. And so that's really our part of it, is delivering that AI agent to reduce the negative value redundant conversations and bring that contact center agent up in the value chain.
Absolutely. Just to summarize everything here, we have clear, confident communication, reduce effort, proactive problem solving, even practicing that. It can help with the interactions becoming more valuable. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But then humans help AI with all the data that goes into it, being able to learn off of those interactions, being able to personalize at scale, learning from the interactions that happen and the outcomes that are coming from it and the dispositions and whatnot, and then just to help it with some of the empathy and concerns that often come up in these conversations. So let's move right along now that we've talked about the benefits in general to what are the main four categories of contact center AI? We said at the beginning, it's not necessarily just an agentic AI agent, although that's what we are most commonly referring to in a lot of conversations. We know ChatGPT can create text for you. It can think of ideas for you and copy and things like that. But what we like to do is categorize it into employee facing and customer facing as generic categories where there's the agents, there's the comms devices, there's things that the customer experiences, but often forgotten, but equally as important are the performance management, coaching, auto QA components. And then Dan was talking about with the simulated trainings where you're not just creating some generic slide deck for people to click through and take a quiz on. You're actually practicing being up there in front of a customer at bat, if you will, to be able to be more confident and have those answers ready to go and scored and coaching on that specifically. So if we were to just go down the line here, Adrian, if you want to speak to some details on the performance management side of things, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. We touched on it right now, right? There's a lot of automation that's taking place. So what ends up happening is as we take care of these and automate tier one, tier two interactions, these are now hitting the agents that are the same agents, right? They're getting leveled up. But are we actually providing them with the right tools? Because now the interactions that they are taking are much more complex, right? And so if these complex interactions are now hitting the agents, that means there are more complex coachings that are hitting the supervisors as well. So not only is it impacting the agents, but it also is impacting the management team that is working and uplifting and upleveling these agents. So when we think about AI performance management, what you really want to think of is how are we actually able to take the data that's coming in from six different systems, seven different systems, data coming in from your CCAS, from your CRM, from your survey data, from your quality data. How can we take in all of this data and really turn it into actual insights that a supervisor can look at and understand, okay, what are the clear coaching actions that I have to take the moment that I log in for my shift? So what AmplifAI is doing is making sure that we can take in all this complex data and providing the most important thing, clear insights and to providing clear AI-driven action. So really helping them out. So where they're not spending half of their day looking at data, they could really get in front of their agents where it's most important and provide that coaching process. Also, when you think about coaching and auto QA, bringing them both together, what we're going to be doing is providing automation when it comes to your QA process. And with that, you're moving from 2% visibility into 100% visibility. Again, adding in more data on top of everything else, because it's not just about the QA data, but really what it's about is taking in all of this data together and being able to identify where are the behaviors that are coming out of the agents and supervisors and what behaviors are they displaying that are impacting these KPIs, these metrics to go up or down. So really clearly identifying these key improvement areas and then providing tailored coaching recommendations that is aligned with these specific business goals, right? You want to make sure that you're looking at these behaviors and how are they going to impact the business as well. So again, we have complex interactions that are hitting the agents, complex coachings that are hitting the supervisors, and making sure that we're tailoring this complex data and aligning it so it meets the agent where they're at, it meets the supervisor where they're at. But most importantly, when the manager is now looking at how their supervisors are performing, they're not necessarily in front of their agents, but they are looking at, hey, what are my supervisors doing? How can I help them become a better coach? Because 9 times out of 10, these supervisors were once agents, right? They were really good agents, but that doesn't mean that they're really great supervisors. And how can we up level them as well? So that now we're giving insights into the managers and providing them clear performance insights as to how effective are their supervisors at coaching to specific metrics, not just overall on a stack ranking, but down to the metric level. How can I help my supervisors and improve that? So again, it's about providing the right type of visibility after bringing in all of this data together so that we're not creating a more complex environment, but more so streamlining the process and making them more effective and efficient with the little bit of time that they have.
Yeah. Bringing all the data together, standardizing it, structuring it in a way that AI can learn from it, connecting that auto QA data to the actual performance coaching, and then not just coaching the agent, but coaching the coach, because it may be really good agents, but the coach needs some help, and being able to identify that. So being very role specific. How about in the world of the agentic agents, where a lot of people go to first? Could you dive into some of the value benefits or metrics there for us, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. We actually look at human and AI agents as first-class citizens in the contact center. And we always start with business objectives. What are you trying to achieve when you think about your AI strategy? And every brand has a touch point or has multiple touch points in their customer journey where AI can be brought into play. And so on the revenue side, it could be helping customers find product and converting that customer or that prospect into a lead. And it could be products or services. And so we've seen customers who take that actionable data that Adrian is just talking about and bringing in those end user stories that align with the business objectives, which is drive more revenue. Using an agentic AI agent to recognize a prospective buyer, help them find the information, remove the friction from the buying process, and whether the buying process is automated or we then pass it to a human who then converts the revenue. It depends on the use case. Driving incremental revenue is a significant opportunity, and then just optimizing contact center efficiency and productivity. If you remove the negative value redundant conversations, for some of our customers, that's as high as 60 to 80% resolution rates. I'm not saying that's what we're getting for everybody. Sometimes, depending on the end user story, it might even be 30%. But if you remove 30% of that negative value redundant conversation in your contact center and you up level your agents to focus more on higher value conversations, you're going to remove friction. And when you do that, your agents are going to be more productive, they're going to be happier, and they're going to deliver more value to you. And there's a number of metrics across either one of those sides of the touch points that a brand might have. And quite frankly, if you do that, you're automatically going to increase your customer satisfaction. And we see CSAT and NPS scores going up 30, 40% as a result of just making information more accessible and personalized to their customers.
Fantastic. Thanks for chatting some questions in as we go along. That's exactly what we want. There's a question about changing the legislative landscape internally, I'm assuming, with the employees of maybe being nervous of an AI agent coming in. I came from a C-class platform, a contact center platform before this and many years before that. And we had one customer specifically who positioned it in a way of you're bogged down and your job becomes boring and mundane and you don't like it when you're having to do all these transactional questions and all the regular redundant stuff that comes in, and we're going to take that off of your plate for you. We're going to make you more valuable, as Michael, you've said several times. Escalation transfers can be programmed really so that you're actually becoming a part of the business that can't be replaced because you're able to handle so many more interactions between the two of you, AI and the human agent, and move forward from there. And when it's framed like that, and also framing it in terms of we're going to be placing AI to support you as well because we value you as a contact center agent with things like SimTrain and Amplify and Sonus as well, where it's like a package of AI enhancing your world and making your job more enjoyable and fruitful job. You become more important to the business. Just to clip along here so we can get to all the questions that we have. For Sonus, you, Tiffany, mentioned in here lowering AHT, average handle time, and how it relates to, say, a CSAT score. Can you specifically talk about those metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back, when you can understand someone, so many things are touched, like so many different metrics within the contact center space. And like, I want to mention, yes, there are very strong CX value, but there's also the human value as well. So one of the things we love about this technology, and probably my favorite part to the stories, is the very human side of it. Yes, strong business value, but when we hear stories during POCs where agents are saying, hey, I'm no longer like being verbally abused by a US customer. And the truth is, and we've all maybe been guilty of it, like we are not the kindest when we call someone and we feel like they can't understand us. So they actually do have to deal with a lot of that. Yes, the CX metrics are pretty incredible. Obviously, your AHT is going to go down when you don't have to continue to repeat yourself. Your escalations are going to go down when you don't have to be sent to a manager who can understand better. We see really strong hits in just general CSAT and NPS. I think a lot of the surveys that are conducted after calls, they may get hit on communication. Sales conversions, right? If you're on the phone with someone and they're talking about their plan and you're trying to upsell them, if they can't understand you, they're not going to be likely to stay on the call longer. That kind of sometimes coincides with the higher AHT, but when your volume per call or your value per call goes up, no one really cares about that increased AHT, but really just goes back to just being able to understand while we are an AI company, like this is a very simple technology. I want you to think of it as essentially a virtual microphone that, when turned on, can unlock one human value, people not going into work feeling anxious about what they're going to endure during the day, but also unlock real business value.
Absolutely. And then, Dan, I think that the metric of just the churn of contact center agents is inherently high, and always having to bring new people in is a huge cost on the business. And a lot of times, one of the main drivers between the contact center being a cost center as opposed to a revenue generator or retaining customers, as metrics like that kind of fall to the side sometimes when you're trying to look at budgets. So on the AI training, maybe you can talk about how AI is able to create those training programs, because you have a stat here that says up to 50% less time to speed to proficiency. Could you give us a little anecdote there?
Yeah, real quick. One of my favorite quotes, and I have a bunch of them, but one of our clients said their people are getting twice as good in half the time. And when I do that math, it almost creates an endless loop, but because you can't correlate the two. But yeah, folks are getting that much better and doing it in less time. That's huge impact on the business. And look, they're getting more practice, right? And it's not just practice that makes you better, but it's either pointed practice, as Adrian was saying before, and being able to target that practice to the right sorts of areas, or perfect practice, right? As Michael was talking about, in handing off better outcomes and better data, right? And we connect with all of these other AI platforms in the tech stack, and that's something we're super excited about. And you're right, whether it's speed to proficiency, cutting that down in half, that's amazing. Whether it's the resource time of your human capital spending to get the team coached up and ready, that's a huge impact area. And then, yeah, obviously, any impact you're making on KPIs and performance, whether it's average handle time that converts to higher resolution, or whether it's CSAT that converts to higher outcomes and conversions, our customers are seeing great results. And what I really love is a lot of these technologies blend together to even give a better outcome. And that's a big focus for SimTrain and some of, how our technology from an open architecture connects with a lot of the other AIs in the marketplace.
Yeah, they say practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. That's BS, I feel like, because who can practice perfect? That's the whole point of practicing. How could
That's
you
what
practice
Sim
perfectly? That's ridiculous. So the quote
from
I like
SimTrain.
is where you don't practice till you get it right. You practice until you can't get it wrong.
Awesome.
And this is a way to get that done a lot more effectively and efficiently.
Cool.
So now that we know the basics of this, we know the categories, we have a better understanding of where we can apply different solutions, we'll move on to where do you start? This is something that everyone is struggling with because there are so many options and everyone does have so many challenges. But when you look at the whole scope of things, everyone does a little bit different type of thing in their contact center, whether it be sales and collections, just regular customer care, technical support, it could even be field office stuff. And you need to be able to find out where you live and then make sure that you have everything in place. So let's dive into some of the things before we get to the demos. This is the last section on what needs to be in place and how do you look at this. Adrian, we'll kick things off with you here.
Yeah, I'll say many of our customers come to us because they face an immediate challenge, and I'll say the majority of all our customers face the same challenges. They have a lot of data that already exists. So that's one thing that we always hear whenever talking to net new customers is that have not involved themselves in bringing AI yet into their contact center is like, where do they start? The same thing that comes across with both of those scenarios is they already have existing data. They already have an ever evolving tech stack that does not communicate with each other. So one thing that we see is that there's always time being spent on pulling reports and trying to understand the results of the data that already exists for them today. So what we suggest is clearly identify your key challenges first. Let's look at what exists today. Why would you want to add something on top of your tech stack again that's going to bring in more data without first understanding, hey, what's happening with your contact center today? Bring in a solution that can aggregate all of this data and provide you the right report so that you can see exactly where you might have gaps that exist today that you can start addressing. Once you're able to stop wasting time on pulling reports and getting unclear actions around the insights that it's providing to you, look at it, pick your challenges based off what you're able to simplify based off the data that you have today, figure out what those challenges are, and start tackling it there, right? Because our main goal is you already have data that exists today. You already have the contact center frontline work staff that you have today. Let's figure out exactly what your top performers are doing and replicate those behaviors across the rest of the organization so you can start scaling the rest of the group as it's driven, as you'll see in the demo, at the agent level, at the supervisor level, and at the management level, right? So again, being able to look at that data that exists today and being able to drive clear action. Again, that's our goal. We try to say, hey, look at what you have today, identify the data that exists. Let us make it easier for you to make sense of it so you're not wasting your time. And already the big return that you'll get is more time back so you can spend time with your agents and your supervisors and be much more effective and efficient.
Yep. And my bad on not flip-flopping these. Adrian, you're just so handsome, I had to call on you first. But Michael, the place where you start before you even look at do you have the right data set is starting with the business objectives. Could you dive into some of the ways that you're finding people are identifying some challenges that they're facing and how to pick that apart just as a starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it just a segue from what Adrian mentioned and what Dan mentioned earlier as well. Perfection's not the goal when it comes to the data and when it comes to the outcomes that you can push with AI. Perfection is the enemy of good. So you've got good data and it's data that we can use. The question is, what data can you use for what use cases? We always do start with what is your business objectives, and within those business objectives, what touch points within your customer journey are affected or will affect those objectives. And once we understand that, then we can drop down a level and say, all right, what are the end user stories? Why are your customers connecting with you? And again, this is where analytics comes into play with AmplifAI and even SimTrain with what they're doing in their training modules. You understand why people are coming to them. What is the end user story? As a customer of Roku, I need to fix my remote or my television so that I can watch the Alabama football game this weekend. And so that's an end user story, and it has some level of treatment that you as a brand would want to have in that use case, either fully automate it, partially automate it, or just get it to an agent, depending on the severity. And from there, being able to then understand what data do I have available to me that would allow an agentic AI agent to be able to handle this just like a human would. How are you currently training your humans? Dan's going to answer that for you. In the same way that you're training humans, you can train an agentic AI agent with the same data, the same standard operating procedures, the same guardrails, and then be able to then offload that section of work that agents are doing that are bogging them down. And so being able to then determine from there what objectives you want to measure, that's where you have to start.
Geez, Alabama fans are relentless. You can't even have a webinar without promoting Alabama football. I know season is
Right.
coming up, but holy cow, at least you didn't give a roll tide. So we have the scenario which you're looking at your challenges, seeing how those challenges relate to your use cases and relate to your data on do you have the data to support to what Adrian was talking about, what it is you need to coach on. So you progress down from there, and then all of a sudden you need to provide something for this work you're doing or provide value in what solutions you're looking to bring in. Dan, could you quickly walk us through some of the ways that people are tying in just generally KPIs to these use cases and challenges that they're trying to address?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we always tell our clients is, what do you got? And the answer is, what's easiest for you that can drive the quickest win, right? And make the biggest impact. And when they say, hey, I got Amplify, it's awesome, right? We're already integrated into Amplify, and we'll grab that data and we'll convert that data in simulations that are targeted to the specific micro moments or coaching sims that you need, and we'll build that way, right? Which is an awesome answer. Or they say, hey, I got Quick, and say, awesome. We can take that data out of Quick and we can convert those into a complete library of sims for a specific use case or an area, right? And that takes so much friction and so much of the responsibility off the shoulders of instructional designers and learning and development or managers to have to think about and be creative around the types of actions they need to build and the types of use cases that are required to help people get better. So we love tying to data. And if someone comes in and says, hey, I got 250 of the best instructional designers in the world that build the best storyboards, we're not going to tell them no. We're like, great, we'll ingest those as well. But what do you got is really our answer. And we try to get our clients to the quickest are going to have the most impact. And when they know where the biggest opportunities sit because of the data in their tech stack, that's where we want to integrate and align to. And it just makes life a whole lot easier when they can do that and have a data-driven coaching rhythm.
Yeah. And you mentioned on something that was really great on how these systems all integrate and feed each other. That's super important when you're looking at this as a marketer. The first thing I look at when evaluating solutions is, what do you integrate with? I don't want some thing over here standing alone off to the side. It's going to be too much of a hassle for the marketing team and the sales teams to work with. Making sure that all that continuity is there. That way you can tell the full story and you can see the full impact of what's going on. And then here, making sure that the metrics that you're following are the things that actually relate back to the business challenges, right? You want to make sure that you're not just increasing AHT or decreasing AHT for the sake of having shorter calls. How does it actually affect the business? What are you actually being able to provide as value in that? And then why don't you just use an all-in-one solution? The contact center platforms have basic PM, they may have an AI agent, they may have some coaching components who need simulated training. If you just need something for the sake of saying you have it or you're making your digital transition and you're not actually using it to solve a challenge, then I guess you can just check the box to say, hey, we're doing this so you can keep your job. But if you're actually trying to build this out, you need to use the tools that are very specifically built for that action. If I'm just the Joe Schmo at home trying to pry something open, I can just grab the biggest flathead screwdriver that I have to pry it open. But if you're an actual professional doing something, like a firefighter is trying to pry something open in a critical situation, like a contact center agent is trying to get the best performance for their business, I'm going to actually go get a crowbar to get something open because that's a proper tool, or the jaws of life. I'm not going to sit there with a tool that, oh, it came with my toolkit. This is my all-in-one toolkit that I got at a trade show. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go get the tool that is made to increase my performance in doing whatever task it is. Same thing in the contact center. You get something that's vanilla, very small feature set, or generically the same, that you're not going to get the results that you'll get if you say, what's the challenge? These are the types of AI solutions I need to plug in. They integrate well, and everything flows smoothly. One question came in on being able to iframe into other tools like a CRM specifically, assuming everyone is good on that. Yes. With Tiffany, yours might be a little bit more unique because it's not
It's
really an interaction
not really
dashboard.
applicable. Yeah.
Yep. But for the other systems that it does apply to, the answer is yes across the board. Thank you everyone for joining. If you want to reach out about any specific solution, please go to that company's website, fill out the contact us form. If you want, mention the webinar, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.